Hello, everyone from Los Angeles. I'm Captain Dale Dye, the military advisor on a great miniseries by the name of Band of Brothers. I hope you've had a chance to see it. Mr. Hadley has asked me to say a few words to you today about Band of Brothers itself and about my role in it. I was the technical advisor for Band of Brothers and was there through the 9 months that it took us to shoot that series. And was fortunate enough to play Colonel Bob Sink, the CO of the 506 Parachute Infantry Regiment, in the miniseries. It's a great work, one that I really hope you get a chance to see if you haven't seen it. Our source material was a great book by the same name, Band of Brothers, written by historian Stephen Ambrose. We adapted that book into 10 episodes of a miniseries for HBO, and I think it is one of the greatest little looks at the Allied effort in World War II that anyone could get, especially the European Theater of Operations, where the 101st Airborne Division, the parent unit of Easy Company 506 Parachute Infantry Regiment, belonged. During the series, we follow them from their formation at Camp Toccoa in Georgia all the way through to the end of the war. And it is, as I said, a real chance to get to know some of the great characters who were involved in Easy Company, and then by extension, to appreciate and understand virtually every man and woman who was involved in World War II. And that was really our intent. So to get there, I took the actors who were to portray the men of Easy Company, and I had 3 weeks, actually, to get them trained. Before I began with the Americans, I trained a platoon of Germans because I wanted the German infantryman, the German soldier, to be adequately and not represented in the miniseries as a kind of a cartoon character. I knew that was wrong. And so we trained a unit of Germans that would follow us throughout the fight. And for 3 weeks, I trained the actors who were going to portray the men of Easy Company. We trained at a place called Hatfield, which is near Aldershot, the home of the British Army in the UK. And I isolated these men completely and immersed them in the atmosphere, in the dialogue, in the psychology of American soldiers, American paratroops in 1944. And the third week of that training, we took them up to the Royal Air Force Parachute School at Brize Norton, also in UK, and gave them a taste of what it's like to be a paratrooper. And during the whole 9 months that it took us to film Band of Brothers, I kept them in that mindset because I thought it was so important. Steven Spielberg, Tom Hanks, who are the producers, and myself, and everyone who worked on Band of Brothers, felt very sincerely and very deeply that this was our opportunity to give a long overdue salute to the men and women who fought. And I thought that this is one that needs to be done right. And so we did that. We pulled no punches. We made it the best we could. And along the way, of course, we interviewed the remaining veterans, those who survived the war. And so what you see in many cases, and not only do you see a little film clip of us interviewing that veteran, but you will see their input. We listened very carefully. And I think that's important. I think it's very important that lectures like Mr. Hadley's go on. I think it's very important that we continue to make movies, television programs about World War II. It is a clear example of a world of free men coming together and saying, we won't put up with tyranny. And it is worth fighting for. Our principles and our causes are worth fighting for. That's relatively hard to find in today's world. But I think World War II represents perhaps one of the last black and white, clear-cut examples of good versus evil. And I think that Band of Brothers goes a long way toward facilitating that study. So I hope you'll continue that study. I'm very glad that I've had a chance to say just a few words to you. I hope I haven't blathered too long. But at any rate, my best wishes, and if you haven't seen Band of Brothers, please go see it.